What no one tells you about Ferrari in Jeddah. What's really happening with the SF25? Why is Leclerc still shining while Hamilton can't take off? Today I'll reveal everything you need to know after the most intense qualifying of the year. The paddock was quick to notice. In Jeddah, Ferrari didn't arrive with a simple patch. It arrived with a complete transformation of its car. The SF25, which raised so many questions in the first few races of the season, appeared with a series of updates that mark a turning point in its development. First, the most visible thing on the park firm sheet. Both cars changed their internal combustion engines. Not out of obligation but by choice. This is no small feat when a team voluntarily replaces one of the car's most delicate components so early in the season. It's saying one thing: there's no time to waste. But they didn't stop there. Ferrari also incorporated a new turbocharger, revised the MGUH and MGUK systems, and completely redesigned the exhaust system. In other words, they touched every corner of the car's heart. All of this without penalties, following the technical regulations to the letter. And they did it in sync with other heavyweights like Red Bull and Racing Bulls. The development war has begun. Now there's an even more critical part of this entire redesign, one that doesn't make the technical headlines: the SF25's new floor. First introduced in Bahrain, this new floor has a single mission: to eliminate high-speed bouncing. This phenomenon not only compromises stability but also forces the team to raise the car, losing downforce. That, in Formula One, is giving away time. In China, the same problem led to Lewis Hamilton's disqualification after the race. The wear on the car's floor was so severe that it failed the FIA inspection. A penalty that was a warning cry. Ferrari needed to solve this problem now. That's why what happens in Jeddah matters so much. This circuit, with high-speed corners that demand precision and downforce, is the perfect laboratory to test whether this new surface really works. In Leclerc's words, "We'll benefit more on a track like this." And the data seems to prove him right. The bounce has decreased. The car is more stable. The overall grip has improved. It's not just the numbers that tell us this, it's the handling on the track that tells us this. But it's not magic. There are still areas where Ferrari loses performance, especially in the first corners of Jeddah. But the message is clear: Ferrari has stopped playing defense. This wasn't just another update. It was a statement of intent. Ferrari is here to compete. Not tomorrow, but today. Jeddah once again demonstrated what is already beginning to be confirmed race after race. Charles Leclerc is getting the impossible out of a car that isn't yet ready to win. From the first free practice session, Leclerc made it clear he was on another level. While the engineers were still analyzing the effects of the new surface and the simulation data, he was already pushing the limits. Even though on paper, Ferrari was still behind McLaren and Red Bull. In practice, the qualifying simulations didn't favor him. There was talk of a half-second gap to Lando Norris. Half a second, which, in Formula One, is a world of difference. But when it came to the crunch, when every thousandth of a second counted, Leclerc erased that gap. He placed fourth just behind the leading trio. And he did it without a perfect lap. He did it by pushing to the limit in every corner with a car that still has obvious weaknesses. One of the sectors where he stood out the most was the middle section of the circuit, the most technical. There, while other drivers suffered with balance or oversteer caused by the new asphalt, Leclerc maintained the ideal line with surgical precision. That's where his difference lies, in his ability to adapt to the car, the conditions, the context. In addition, there's one detail that makes the difference in a team like Ferrari. Charles has been faster than his teammate all weekend. And we're not talking about just any teammate. We're talking about a 7-time world champion. Leclerc's consistency is no longer a surprise. It's a constant. But it's not just speed. It's attitude. In his statements after qualifying, Leclerc didn't sell smoke. He wasn't euphoric. He was realistic. He knows Ferrari isn't ready to win yet, but he also knows that these kinds of qualifying sessions are what build a solid season. A fourth place in the race with strategy and pace can be a podium. And if chaos ensues, even more. The most interesting thing is that he's doing it with a car that still needs to be understood. That continues to evolve. That changes from race to race. And yet, Charles maintains his level. We mustn't forget that this SF25 isn't easy to drive. Stability in fast corners remains a challenge, and the tire's working window is narrow. But Leclerc has made it look simple. In every session, on every fast lap, Leclerc reaffirms his status within Ferrari. Not just as a leading driver, but as the pillar upon which this new era of the team is being built. In 2025, Ferrari needs a warrior, and they have one. He wears the number 16 and a red helmet, which this weekend shone brighter than ever. 7th place on the grid in Jeddah isn't just a number. It's a sign. A silent warning that something isn't right. Lewis Hamilton, the most successful driver of the modern era, still can't find his place at Ferrari. And that's worrying. It's not just about the result. It's about the process. Throughout the weekend, Hamilton has struggled to connect with the SF25. While Leclerc pushed from practice, Hamilton struggled with the car, the setup, even his confidence. The body language was evident. Every time he boarded, it was clear that the Briton wasn't comfortable. Particularly in the high-speed corners, where the SF25 is still unstable. There, Hamilton was lifting more than usual, losing his line, and correcting more than usual. In Formula One, those details are time. And time is the difference between the front row and the third. And this isn't an isolated case. There were already signs in previous races. In Bahrain, in China, at every circuit so far, Hamilton has had to struggle more than expected to match his teammates' pace. The gap isn't huge, but it's constant. And in big teams, those tenths of a second are alarming. The problem doesn't seem to be technical, at least not entirely. Ferrari has worked hard to match the setups between the two cars. The telemetry data is similar. What changes is the feeling. Hamilton doesn't feel like a part of the car yet. And that emotional connection, that intuitive understanding, is key in a car like this, which is still under development and demands aggressive but precise driving. Adapting to Ferrari also has a psychological component. Lewis isn't just changing teams, he's changing cultures. The environment, the way of working, the media pressure in Italy, everything is different. And while his experience is unquestionable, even the greats need time. But in Formula One, time is a luxury that isn't always granted. Furthermore, in Jeddah, he was overtaken by names who, in theory, shouldn't be ahead. Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes, Carlos Sainz in the Williams. Two cars that shouldn't be ahead of the SF25. But in qualifying they were. That's the reality Ferrari and Hamilton must face. The most critical voices are already beginning to wonder if Hamilton was the right choice. If he can adapt in time. If he can perform with a car that for now doesn't suit his smooth, progressive style. The pressure will grow. Inside and outside the pits. But Hamilton has built his career by defying adversity. In the history of great champions, there's always a stage where they must reinvent themselves. For Lewis, that moment has arrived. It's not a question of talent. There's plenty of that. It's a question of adaptation, connection, synchronization with a machine that's still evolving. If he succeeds, he can change history. If not, this Italian adventure will be remembered as an experiment that never got off the ground. Jeddah was just another page. But every page counts. And at Ferrari, chapters are written quickly, or not at all. On a circuit like Jeddah, where every corner grazes the wall and every second of the safety car can completely reshape the race, strategy is not an option. It's the only way to survive. And Ferrari knows it. They proved it in Bahrain. While everyone else was choosing soft tires, they took a risk with medium tires. A brave gamble that sought two things: extending the first stint and controlling the pace when the others began to suffer degradation. Although the safety car ruined part of that move, the message was clear. Ferrari isn't going to run defensively this year. If strategic risks need to be taken, they will. And in Jeddah, that approach could make the difference. The Saudi track isn't just fast. It's unpredictable. It has high-speed sections that wear the rear tire more than it appears. And while it's not the most abrasive layout on the calendar, the heat, downforce, and harsh braking in critical areas create an ideal scenario for a well-thought-out strategy to turn into an unexpected victory. During the long runs and free practice, Ferrari showed a clear improvement in race pace. Leclerc was consistent, with times that placed him just behind Russell and the McLarens. He wasn't at the top, but he was close. Enough to get into the fight if the conditions align. If a safety car appears at the right time. If other teams are forced to stop early. If there is chaos. In that chaos, Ferrari can emerge. But it's not all about tires. There's another key factor, the driver order. Leclerc is at the front. Hamilton starts from the back. That influences individual strategies. Will they use Hamilton as a stopper to protect Leclerc's race? Will they use divergent strategies to maximize their opportunities in the face of a late safety car? Then there's the issue of the undercut. In Jeddah, with a relatively short pit lane and fast laps, a well-executed undercut can gain 2 or 3 positions. And Ferrari has the means to do it. Their pit stops have improved. Coordination with the drivers is more fluid. And in a year where Red Bull has shown cracks, where McLaren is still inconsistent, every move counts. The Italian team can't afford to be conservative. Qualifying made it clear that they don't yet have the fastest car. But in race pace, tire management, and reading the environment, they have a window. Small, yes, but enough. And that's where strategy becomes a weapon, not a tool. Ferrari is no longer seeking to survive. It's seeking to attack. And if the race becomes a game of chess, we must remember that in Maranello, beyond passion, there are engineers willing to move the pieces with a cool head. In Jeddah, that could mean everything. Qualifying in Jeddah isn't just a result. It's a turning point. A snapshot of Ferrari's current situation in the 2025 season. Leclerc's 4th place and Hamilton's 7th place epitomize a paradox. Real progress, but still insufficient. And that duality is exactly what's at stake. Because technical development isn't measured only in lap times. It's measured in confidence, in internal credibility, in the validation of a technical direction that began with risky decisions in the preseason. A new floor, a change in aerodynamic philosophy, a redesign of the exhaust system, and now, a massive upgrade to the power unit. All of this demands one thing: results. And fast ones. Ferrari's fight isn't just against Red Bull or McLaren. It's against the clock. Because every race that passes is one less opportunity to close the gap. And it's not just about pure performance. It's about the psychological impact these weekends have on the team's dynamic. If the improvements don't translate into podiums, into important points, the risk is losing the accumulated technical and emotional momentum. In addition, there is the internal issue. Leclerc has been consistent, effective, and increasingly a leader. But Hamilton's arrival introduces a new balance that, for now, hasn't consolidated. The performance gap between the two is already generating debate. And if this trend continues, Ferrari will have to make decisions. Prioritize development around Leclerc? Wait for Hamilton's adaptation? Rethink its medium-term strategic plan? There's also pressure from outside. The Italian press is relentless. Sponsors expect results. And the fans even more so. Ferrari isn't just any team. It's the team that represents a nation, a history, a demand that doesn't allow for transitional seasons without concrete progress. Added to this is the championship's reading. In a 2025 season where Red Bull has shown flaws, where Mercedes is still not at its best, and where McLaren is advancing, but still not completely consistent, Ferrari has a unique window. A window to establish itself as the second team and, with continuous development, enter the big fight. If it doesn't do so now, it will lose much more than points. It will lose momentum. And in Formula One, momentum is everything. What's at stake in every qualifying session like Jeddah is more than just a starting grid. It's the team's direction. It's the destiny of a season. And in Ferrari's case, it's the difference between dreaming of the title or settling for almost again. What we saw in Jeddah wasn't just another qualifying session. It was a silent declaration. A warning to those who thought Ferrari would remain trapped in mediocrity. Because yes, Leclerc is on the edge. Yes, Hamilton is in the midst of a transition. And yes, the SF25 isn't yet the best car on the grid. But what Ferrari is doing is something else. It's building. And it's doing so with painful decisions, with risks that could cost dearly if not executed with precision. But that's the difference between surviving in Formula One and leaving your mark. The path is clear. The technical direction has changed. The team's attitude has changed. And although the results aren't yet reflected in victories, every statistic, every adjustment, every session shows that Ferrari no longer competes with just heart. Now it competes with strategy, with method, with real ambition. Jeddah was a testing ground not only for the car but for the team's mentality. And what was seen was a Ferrari that dares, that doesn't hide, that isn't afraid to fail if it means getting closer to its best version. And that's what can change everything. Sunday's race will be the ultimate test. It's no longer about a fast lap or a good qualifying. It's about execution. About proving that the technical work is worth it, that strategic reading works, and that the combination of experience and talent is beginning to bear fruit. Because if there's a team that knows how to transform pressure into glory, it's Ferrari. And this season, with everything happening on the grid, with Red Bull showing cracks, Mercedes rebuilding, and McLaren still struggling to establish itself, if Ferrari makes a splash, no one will be able to say they didn't see it coming. So buckle up. Because if this trend continues, if Ferrari manages to make its technical and strategic decisions explode into race pace, what's coming won't be a surprise. It will be a resurrection.